The release of Apple's 3 new iPhones has many customers buzzing. It is the latest installment of the iPhone X family, featuring the XS, the XS Max, and the XR. Okay, I got
Thankfully, that was your read. The new phones are said to be the upgraded versions of last year's iPhone X. The line ranges in size, price, weight, and color. Joining us now with those new iPhones in hand is senior editor for reviews at CNET, Scott Stein.
No different than this one, right? Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh, yours looks like a baby compared to those two.
I kept getting these so confused when I was reviewing them. Like which one was which? I
mean, on the surface they look the same.
Okay,
so they're totally on the same on the surface. I mean, these are the same design. Yeah, so what's the situation this year? There's an explosion of these. The explosion, the phones, right. So these come out now for the XS and XS Max, but Apple has a third phone, the XR or the XR, that's coming out late October. That one costs less, and it could well be as well performing as this phone, maybe in a better battery life, so you got to wait. This is part one of, yeah, exactly. So heads up, if you want to get one of these, wait for that one. But the difference here is that if you're an iPhone X person, you do not need to upgrade.
You don't.
No, I mean, this is faster. A lot of, like, again, upgrades in terms of speed, cameras, LTE is faster, but the whole picture, this whole thing, still feels like the one before, and the prices are high. This is $1,000 and up.
So does it still have the, like, sort of the Android type? Because the reason I didn't upgrade, I actually just bought this. It's brand new, and this is the 8, not the 8 Plus, the 8, right? The 8, whatever the last 8 one is.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to buy the X, but I started messing around with it, and I was like, I don't have time to like figure out a new way to like.
So the interface, is it that different?
Yeah. The interface.
Well, that's the thing. Face ID for logging you in is faster now. But that's what I was saying in my review, too, is that I still think for a lot of people that are used to the old way of doing it, getting in is really fast. I still think Face ID and that whole interface takes a lot of getting used to. I mean, sooner or later, Apple's going to move its entire line to that. Right. So it is going to happen, but you don't have to make the choice right now if you don't want to. That being said, I think these are really good phones, but they are not necessary phones, especially if iOS 12, which just came out, is improving performance on a lot of older phone models, which it is. Update your phone to iOS 12. Check out how it's performing. And yeah, if you have a 10, you spend $1,000 for it. Just wait. Just hold still on that.
Right.
Okay, so can we talk about the list that Vlad read off, the XR, whatever? Like, what are the differences between the phones?
Sure. So you're basically looking at the same processors inside, so that matters for speed. The cameras have been improved, the basic internal sensors and the image signal, all that stuff that's in there. What you're talking about is that the dual cameras. So if you like zooming in telephoto, the fancy ones, these also have...
The camera just zoomed in right there when you said that.
Yeah, so these, the XS models also have the fancy design, which you do not need to have in terms of the glass and the steel. The XR will have aluminum. But also these have OLED screens. That just means if you're a real screen aficionado, they're higher resolution, colors are better. That being said, Apple already makes great LCD screens. If you have an 8 or even iPad, the screens generally look fine. So I don't think it's the same difference you know, when you had a MacBook and you go to Retina, that you notice. I don't think this is that type of leap. But you're mostly talking about little differences to spend more for these phones. Starting at $750 for the XR or XR, $750 is a much more reasonable price for a phone.
Right.
It's still expensive,
yes,
though. But it's something that fits more in the landscape versus the $1,000 or $1,100.
So we've been saying the XR and all this, but clearly we're not the CNET people because it's the XR and the 10 whatever, right?
It's the XS and the XR. Everyone's going to say XS and XR.
Okay.
And that's going to happen all the time. And I'm losing track of the differences in them. You'll lose track of the differences. When I had them lying on tables, we wondered which one was which. And I think it's just going to get to that point where you're going to just grab one.
I feel like sort of after, not this announcement, but the announcement before, I remember I asked, right, because I had the 8, should I invest in a 10? And it was, no, wait till the next one. And I feel like every time there's an announcement now from Apple, it's kind of like, wait till the next one, because hardly anything huge comes out anymore in regards to the phones. The earbuds were really cool and all that sort of stuff, but you know?
Right. Well, if you've been waiting a while, if you've been thinking about, like, you have an iPhone 7, I think this is a great time to upgrade in terms of the whole package. Now you wait a couple of years, the speed, and I think that these chips are promising big gains that you can't really observe yet in terms of they promise for AI and things, so eventually if apps get more advanced. Right now, it's just another faster phone.
Right.
But that could matter. But again, if these were the only phones that Apple made right now, I'd say, okay, well, this is worth it. But with the XR coming, You just got to wait for that, because I think for most people it's battery, processor, camera, and if it covers those bases, it's kind of like the iPad. A lot of people buy the entry-level one. It's fine.
I still have an iPad like 3, and it works fine, and it does exactly what it was built as being able to do. It's the same thing. I had this discussion before. I think that these phones are starting to become like refrigerators. They all do the same thing, and there's just a couple of different variations of them. But basically, the idea of keeping your food cold from spoiling, that's what refrigerators have been doing for 150 years, or however long they've been invented, and that's what these phones are doing now. And I suspect that if you're if you look back at the moves that Steve Jobs made, where it was like, hey, there's a iPhone or there's a MacBook. These are essentials. You need them in your life. Now, with all these different variations and all these XS and XR and all, I mean, I'm good with the one, and I'll be fine for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's like laptops.
I don't need AI on my phone.
Okay, but so let me ask you a question.
It's a laptop type thing.
What is it that we don't know? Is there something maybe people like you, the insiders, know that's coming down the line that, my phone is going to be a paperweight when all this other technology kicks in?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think that when you look at the whole big phone landscape, we've been seeing a lot of promises from companies like Samsung about things like bendable phones or transformable phones.
That's interesting.
Right. So how will that hold up? Is it durable? Is it interesting? There's that. Camera tech might advance even further, maybe adding extra lenses or who knows what. Apple's talking about computational photography, is the idea that you can do more by just capturing the information and transforming it later on. Google already does that. So there's possibilities there, but it's kind of like, what does that really mean? I do think the form of the phone could change. But right now, everything's kind of locked into this shape. And we don't really even know if that next form is one that you'd want or how much you'd have to pay for it. But I think we are like in laptop land. We're at the point where I think is a very stable landscape. So that's the good news if you want to buy something between all the phones, is that it's a good time to buy if you can afford it. And you just have to wait for the most affordable one. For Apple, that's the one that we unfortunately do not have to review yet. But I think at this point, with a polished like that S model, it's usually a good time to get on. And the question is, what can they really add? Battery life would definitely help because it's still not a giant leap, and price. But I think the features, you're getting to the point where a lot of that's covered. Maybe better drop durability.
That would be great.
You got to be really careful with those 10s. Like, they will shatter if you drop them.
You would take all those folks who repair those phones out of business then.
I know.
You can't do that.
So they look so beautiful when they come out of the box, and then you got to put these big bulky cases all on top of them,
well, this is metal. This is metal.
Yeah, it's a stainless steel.
So remember back in the early iterations, there was a problem with the antenna with the original iPhones they were surrounded by metal too.
Going back to the 4. Oh yeah, I mean, and actually cellular in this is actually very much improved. So if you're thinking about making the leap and you're wondering how the reception is, I've had much faster LTE speeds. It's not a 5G phone, but 5G, that technology, super fast, is not here yet really. That could be a next year thing.
Okay.
So we're waiting for that.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Scott Stein, as always, thank you.